I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Oxbridge Building Committee on December 21st here at 1 o'clock. I sent out a draft of the minutes of our last meeting. I went out today. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to look them over or have comments or corrections on them. If you do, please let me know at this point. Has everybody then had a chance to either look at them or give their thought as to whether everything's okay? I tried to list all the alternatives that we agreed upon and leave out the ones that we did. I just made a point that we didn't. We left certain of the alternatives out to discuss today or in the future. All right. Hearing no corrections, may I have a motion to approve these minutes, please?
Motion, Katie.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second them, Diane.
All in favor of approving the minutes as drafted, indicate by saying aye.
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 Any objections, any noes? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. The next part of our meeting is talking about where we stand with project mobilization. I'm going to turn that over to David and or George.
Okay. George, do you want to speak to this, or would you like me to do it for today?
Yeah, if you could do it, Dave, that'd be fine.
Sure. So where we are mobilization-wise is meetings continued on site last week with us and Sean's Lawns. They were out there to set up control last week, setting up survey points so that they could be used for layout of the building. And today they started, the tree company is out there. They are working on the fencing contractor is out there putting up fencing, putting up tree protection. I believe there's a few pieces of equipment that got delivered today, and they're starting installation of the erosion and sedimentation. So we are working on a schedule update. Obviously we did get a later start than we had wanted, and we're rolling with the change in sequence here of the building department needs to make sure that all of the erosion and sedimentation, including the temporary sedimentation basin, is completed and inspected before they allow any of the foundation excavation to start. So we are working to get that done so that we can actually get turned loose to actually start foundation excavation. So like I said, that the work is starting to ramp up. Sean's is now on site full time. Scott Marlowe, our superintendent, is on site full time, is producing daily reports and coordinating the work. So keeping Luke abreast of any changes of what's happening on the campus. So that appears to be going well. Luke, no concerns for you so far?
No, so far so good. I really appreciate the communication, and Scott's been terrific on the ground, and so far so good.
Good. And I think there was some coordination that happened last week as well with, I don't know if it was with you, Luke, or with you, Mike, relative to the the playground area that was on the east side of the site and salvaging some materials.
That was myself with the Parks and Rec department in the town. Okay. They came and took the swing set. Okay,
yeah, I was out there on Tuesday and I had seen some vehicles out there. So did they get what they needed?
Absolutely, very happy.
Okay. And the last thing that I thought was up in the air was there were some pickets, which the last time I talked to Scott, he had said that if they weren't gone, he was going to, I think, bring his own drill and just detach those pickets and set them aside in case someone needed them down the road. I don't know if those are gone yet.
My understanding is that the women from the PTO back in 2013 and 14, they notified all the people that if they wanted their picket with their name on it, they could come and get it. And I think there's a few missing off the fence, but most of the people didn't care to come and get them, I guess.
Okay.
So she said to me they could go.
Okay. And then our field office is is operating on temporary power. And George, I don't know if you know where we are with, permanent electric and then getting cable to the trailer.
Yeah, I know Scott is meeting with Sean's Lawn and Ferguson there tomorrow. They're going to discuss about, setting some poles and getting the power, from the street to the trailers and the laydown sites. So we'll know more about that schedule-wise tomorrow, but it's probably be another 2 or 3 weeks, for the power. And then I think once we set the poles, we'll be able to get cable there within the next, day or two.
You're on mute, Dave.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, it sounds like, Scott's on a air card and we've got some mobile communications there so we can be operating out of there even without the permanent services. So.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave. Next order of business is to approve the remaining scope reviews that have occurred since we last met. I'm going to give it back to you again, Dave.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. How about
We're
now?
into it now. Yep.
Okay. So we have 4 bid packages. These were the final 4 bid packages out of the 20, forgot how many there were in total, 21, 22. So these scope review meetings were performed over the course of the last week. And so I will go through them. The first one is bid package 1.07 fire stopping. So we did on bid day, we did receive a bid in the amount of $16,000 from, I think it was North Haven Fire Stop.
Right.
They, upon an initial discussion that they had with George in setting up the scope review, they had realized that they missed a portion of the scope of work, I believe, that came out via the addendum process. So they submitted their withdrawal letter last week. We had figured from the get-go, when we were doing all of the analysis of the bid numbers to the budget, we had never accounted for them because it was something that just quickly in our mind just drew a concern. It was so far off. So we had never been accounting for the 16. We had always been carrying the 45 in our budget versus bid assessment. So we did scope Barber Fire Stop Systems, and after that scope review, they covered all of the scope of work. There were no issues. So we are asking for approval to enter into a contract with Barber Fire Stop Systems LLC for the contract amount of $45,000 for bid package 1.07 fire stopping for the Oxbridge Elementary School project. Kip, do you want me to read through all 4 of these and then we'll do a vote at one time like we did last week?
Yeah, I think it's much more efficient that way.
Okay.
We should have discussion anywhere along the line that anyone has an issue, please bring it up.
Are there any questions about this approval letter? Okay, hearing none. Next is food service equipment. We had scoped 11400 Inc. Had a scope review with them. There were no scope issues. They included all the requirements of the project. And with that, we are looking for approval to enter into a contract with 11400 Inc. for the contract amount of $272,500 for bid package 1.10 food service equipment for the Oxbridge Elementary School project.
I can learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar with the ways.
Are there any questions? No, hearing none, we'll move to the next. The next is bid package 1.11 window treatments. We received a low bid from Turner Commercial Products LLC, and after a scope review with them, found no gaps in the scope. They included all the contract requirements. And with that, we are asking for approval to enter into a contract with Turner Commercial Products LLC for the contract amount of $85,320 for bid package 1.11 window treatments for the Oxbridge Elementary School project. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Final approval letter of the day and of the project. We have bid package 1.18, final cleaning. We received a parent low bid from Horizon Services Company. Scoped them out. They included all the scope of work, all the contract requirements they included. With that, we're asking for approval to enter into a contract with Horizon Services Company for the contract amount of $63,848 for bid package 1.18, final cleaning for the Oxbridge Elementary School project. Any questions?
I guess the only comment I want to make, Dave, is that in listening to the food service equipment provider, he did indicate that there had to be a fair amount of coordination in the installation of his equipment and all of the various, I guess, outlets and gas lines and things like that with the Ferguson or the plumber or whatever. So,
Correct.
but that's down the road. I realize just a question of that there's going to be a lot of coordination there.
Yep, and that's common for every project, Kip, that we involve them early, and especially when it comes to the various underground rough-ins and in-wall, making sure that the dimensions of all the equipment. So we will be addressing that during our coordination process.
Right.
Hey, Dave, it's Duke, and I'm sure through Luke or whatever, there's been coordination with the new food service provider for the district around this.
Amy, can you speak to that?
Hi, Duke. I don't think that they were involved during any of our design meetings because they had not been contracted yet. But
Correct.
they do have, I believe that they've been having regular conversation with between Mike Lynch and Dr. Forshaw that any questions, we're happy to take on.
Good. I just wanted to make sure they were in the loop, which I figured they were. Thank you.
Okay, if there is any discussion to be had, we obviously have some time. My guess is we will, we as a team, O&G, AP, and SLAM, that those are a series of submittals that we'll likely push off until we certainly get through a majority of everything that's in the academic wing, just as a priority. But we will have some time for the review of those submittals long before we need them in 2022.
Good. Thanks, Dave. Makes sense.
There being no further questions, I'm going to put forward a motion to accept these bid packages, number 1.07, 1.1, 1.11, and 1.18 as presented to this meeting for the committees to approve and accept. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who is that?
Dan.
Dan, thank you. All in favor of accepting these bid packages, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to, I'm sorry.
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Let's now talk about the project alternatives. We left off a number last time as indicated by the minutes. And Amy, I'm going to let you carry maybe we should go back on a couple ones that we don't have to go into too much detail on. There was a question about the lightning protection. And I'm going to try and get my little note here and tell me which particular item that was. I believe that was B. Hold on.
The lightning protection, Kip, is B5.
B5, right. And that was going to be a $25,000 reduction if we accepted to take the lightning protection out. Now, we did have two sources of investigation. One was going to the town's insurance agent. They came back with the fact that there'd be no premium savings if we took it out or kept it in, and that they really hadn't thought much about, the insurance company didn't really have any words about whether this was required or not. Then again, we talked with Mike Lynch, and who has experience of 2 lightning strikes on 2 of the schools he's been involved with, and he said the damage was always much more than the $25,000 that is going to be saved by not having it. So those are the 2 different people we consulted, and the question is whether it really makes a lot of sense to pursue this reduction for what is not a big win in terms of dollars saved, or whether we just we include it because we think we don't need it. So I'll open it to discussion to the committee to go over right now. Are there any thoughts? Kate.
Kip, did I understand that right? Or Kip and Mike, that you were saying in the buildings that you've worked with previously that have been hit by lightning, that this protection would prevent damage or would not?
The lightning protection would have prevented damage. You know, one case I had about $30,000 worth of damage, mostly masonry. You know, it was a tall chimney. The other building, the way it hit, I had a large parapet wall and a large section of a parapet wall, 4 stories up, was damaged, and a big section of the roofing was damaged also. And they were 2 of the, you know, they were the tallest building in the area, and neither of them had a lightning protection. I mean, in all honesty, I've had other buildings that have not had lightning protection, and you know, they've never been struck either. So, but I think if you don't have it, I don't really know what the insurance paid for back then when it happened. I don't know what the coverage is that the town insurance is either.
Well, according to Kate Bush, went to the insurance agent, and the comment that came back was he went to the risk consultant and said, I have not seen this as a requirement from an insurance company, nor have I seen it as a requirement per any building codes. The topic came up recently with another client who was wondering if there was any premium savings if they installed lightning protection. He doesn't believe that the insurance company required it, nor did they provide any premium savings for voluntary installation. So I toss it out to the committee for people who want to argue for or against it, but see if we can't make a decision on that today. That's the best information we seem to have gotten back.
This is Diane. I just have a question about a comment that was raised at our last meeting. I think my concern is that we'd be duplicating the system if we have lightning protection as part of the solar system, which is going to be the highest point on the roof. I mean, based, I guess, on Dave and Amy's experience, is that the case that, and this being a lower building as well, that the highest point on the building is going to be the solar panels, and they'll be protected by lightning, and therefore that provides protection that will eliminate the need for this in the building itself.
Amy, isn't some of our HVAC equipment going to be taller than the PV panels?
Yes, definitely. The screens around the MEP systems and the rooftop units themselves will be taller than the solar panels.
Okay, good. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the
Personally,
nearby structure is the water tower, and I'm pretty sure that has lightning protection on it, but that's up about, I'm going to guess, 70 or 80 feet at least. That's up nearby, very nearby the school, as I recall. Is it? It's not Tower Drive. Maybe it is it Tower Drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Personally, I would vote to keep this in. I think that two things make me seem like it's a bit of a no-brainer to us, and one is that If Mike is saying that the cost of this is pretty much guaranteed to be less than any sort of repairs, and I would always prevent something versus trying to fix it, especially when it could be disruptive to the school kids. And then second, in our last conversation, while Amy, I know you said it was rare, I also noticed that you said that there's no guarantee that without this, that a child or staff person could not be electrocuted, or I guess, well, not electrocuted, but anyway, struck. So just from a safety standpoint as well, like, you know, if we're debating this and we think it could be a protection that saves us money and also protects all of the humans in the building, that just seems like something we should go with to me.
My comment would be that I'd be concerned that all of the modern electronic equipment that we're putting in these schools could be vulnerable, and that would be far expensive than the insurance additional cost here. I just concerned that there's going to be a lot of security cameras, there's going to be a lot of communications, there's going to be a lot of high-tech electronics, and lightning does wonderful damage when it does it, and it does a pretty large scale, and I would hate to have any of that equipment be destroyed because it'd be very expensive to replace.
Kip, what was the premium cost here?
The additional cost, the additional cost, which is already included in the numbers that we've approved, is a $25,000 upcharge. But what we're talking about here is if we take it out, we'll save $25,000. Okay, so it's a savings of $25,000 by taking it out, rather than the basic program is it's in the specs right now and in the cost.
This is Rusty. Just repeat what I said last week. We build two-story buildings all the time. Actually, they're a little taller than that. We've never put lightning protection. I also have one of the biggest PV systems in the area on my roof, and I don't have it there. And I looked it up, and your odds of getting a hit, even if you're tall, a building is tall, is about 1 in 500,000. So from my book, I'd rather spend $25,000 on something educationally positive.
So I presume that all the fancy electronics have surge protection, which I guess would protect against a power surge. Would they protect against a lightning strike, or would they not?
I really don't know the answer to that, Dan. Yeah. I mean, they do protect from some level of oversurge. It's like a house, you know, you can't really predict what's going to happen.
Right.
But I will mention, as long as I have the floor, that this was built into the budget in order to help control cost if, in fact, your bids came back over budget. But you certainly are in a good position as far as how the bids came back. So it's not necessary to remove, if you look at it that way.
Well, does anybody have a point of view they want to make, or make a motion?
Hey, Mike Lynch, do all the other elementary schools, and I'm assuming Middlesex does, and the high school, have a lightning protection?
No, I think the high school has it. That's it.
Not Middlesex at that height?
Yeah, no, Middlesex has one.
George, it does. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I think the cupola is the highest point in town, if I'm not mistaken.
The cupola is the highest point in town.
Yeah, it does have
I was on that roof about a month ago. I didn't remember seeing lightning, but you built the building. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
I know the high school has it.
Yeah, the rods are on the roof. In fact, the pigeons would try to land on them and get speared with them.
Recognizing the very slight risk that this would happen, we have the money for it. And I think we would look really silly if that did happen 2 years down the road and we had a major financial result when we could have insured it for a number that was budgeted, and we're coming in well below budget. So my inclination is to leave it in.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we leave it in.
Do I have a second for that motion?
Second, Katie.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor of leaving the lightning protection in, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there those opposed?
Nay. Nay, Randy here.
I hear 2 noes. The motion is carried. So the lightning protection B5 will not be, has been rejected. To take it out, has been rejected.
Okay. Kip, can I take a moment and address the committee with respect to the change in the values for 2 of the playground alternates that were approved at the last meeting?
Please do.
Okay. So I believe that, Kip, I believe you said you had shared an email I had sent to you about a little bit of the background on this.
Yes, I made sure that Katie and Diane saw it.
Okay, so what happened was the 2 alternates we're talking about are, one is alternate S2, which is the embankment slide, and the next one is S4, which is the playground surface material. What's on the screen now is the excerpt from Compan's form of proposal from bid date, and what we had initially put into the alternate summary that we had circulated was the lower of the 2 values. However, after further review, as we're trying to put our contract document together here, we had realized the scope that they had clarified, and we mistakenly put the 2 incorrect amounts in the alternate sheet. So the playground surface material, and I believe Amy had put this back in her presentation knowing we'd be talking about it, the alternate in the documents called for the playground surfacing to be in a pattern. When Compan priced alternate S4, they priced that with the design, but then they also gave us a price for just doing it in 1 color. So we had presented the $198,000 number when to meet the design, we should have presented the $239,000 number. So that was one item. And then looking at the embankment slide, because of the selection to go with the playground material, the playground surface material, the initial cost that Compan put in there was to do it with wood fiber, but we're removing wood fiber from the project. So the other price, which was approximately $4,800 more, was to not only do the embankment slide, but provide it with the similar type of playground surfacing material. So what we also checked was to make sure that if these alternates are accepted in these higher values, we wanted to make sure that whether or not Compan was still the lowest qualified responsible bidder, and they are. Their prices for these alternates still have them being the lowest qualified responsible bidder. The net increase, again, was about $45,000 between the 2 of them as an increase. So I felt it necessary to inform the committee that the values that were talked about at the last meeting were inaccurate. So I don't know if you can see this Excel sheet. We have updated those values on the screen. So the value for the embankment slide alternate S2 has increased to $22,671, and then the playground surfacing alternate S4 has increased to $239,383. So Kip, I don't know if you need to re-vote on those, or if how you feel it fitting to close the book on these.
Well, this is a clarification where the numbers were incorrect the last time around. Let me ask this question of the committee. Is there anybody that would change their vote today, knowing these prices are a little bit higher? Apparently, no one would change their vote. I'm not sure whether we have to officially vote it to, well, maybe I should just say, let me make a motion to approve the adjusted prices on alternate S2 and S4, to accept them as with the new prices included. I'm putting forth that motion. Is there a second?
Second, Katie.
Is there any discussion on this?
I do have one question, just a
Sure.
point of clarification for Dave. On the spreadsheet you're showing, it has lumped together in the embankment slide a $7,000 landscaping charge. Is that $7,000 unnecessary, that fee, if we don't do the slide?
No, so if this is Sean's Lawns, that's the site work contractor. So there is some site work that has to be done. I believe it's related to maybe some grading and things that to accommodate the slide. So 7,000 is Sean's Lawns portion of that alternate. And then the balance, 15,671, is the scope of work for Compan for both the surface material and for providing the slide itself.
And if we
So
were
it's
to
an
not,
so it's an all-in-one. If you chose to not do the embankment slide at all, we would simply not accept it. And so in turn, we would not award an additional 7,000 to Sean's, nor would we award an additional 15,671 to Comcast. Their
okay, thank
contracts
you.
as they currently stand remain.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Were there opposed? No opposed. No abstentions. The motion is carried. S2 and S4 alternates have been accepted as revised in terms of pricing. Okay.
Okay, Amy, do you want me to change the presenter to you?
Yes, please. I have some additional photos that may assist in the window Brit discussion.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, Amy, you should have control now.
Okay. Okay, so this is the slide that I shared a week and a half ago or so when we last spoke about the alternate B2. The fritted glass pattern as yet has not been designed because we'll do that in conjunction with the winning glazing manufacturer. But the idea will be to have a frit pattern such as what you see that I'm circling with my mouse on the screen, where leaves are over each other, and we will utilize leaves from the trees that we know are local to the property, and those are indicated in the upper right-hand corner. The way that this alternate was written, there's an alternate to do fritted glass or not. So it's an additional cost to do the fritted glass, and that would include at every location where we've indicated it. It's not really a, this value includes everywhere, it's not separated, but there are different areas in the building where we've suggested it. So at the main entrance, we've suggested that the glass box of the main entrance itself would get this frit pattern, and that it would be in 3 different values so that the frit is more and less solid at the top and more solid at the bottom, although not solid. You'd be able to see through it, but it would be a heavier pattern, if you can understand. That same process would happen at the ELP Commons room. where it faces the courtyard, and that whole wall of glass would also have the pattern, and it would be heavier at the bottom, lighter and lightest. And then at the remaining elevations of the courtyard, and I'm showing only one of those here, but this would also be at the location where the learning commons are for grades kindergarten and first, as well as third and fifth at the lower level. There would be fritted pattern just on occasional windows in a random pattern. So you'll see here that on this facade that is the north face of the fifth grade at the lower level and second grade at the upper level, that the pattern for the frit would be, again, heavy at the bottom and lighter as you go up, but it wouldn't be on every panel. And that same kind of random pattern is what you'd see on the other courtyard elevation as well. Now, that's what we presented last week, and you asked for a little bit more information and what you could expect to see. So I have gathered as much as I could from imagery. This is actually Guardian Glass, which is the manufacturer of the glazing that we put into the spec. So this is an example at a healthcare facility in California where there's fritted glass on some panels, but not all. And you can see that from the outside, in certain light, it's very prominent. This pattern happens to be solid at the edges of the giraffe, which would not be the case for yours. But you can see that, from a different point of view, you almost don't read it when you look at this lower right hand image, and on the inside as well. It's still very translucent and allows all that natural light to come in. The next example shows something similar to what we're discussing, where there's different versions of essentially the same pattern, heavier and lighter. So while ours is a little bit more regular in nature, where it's heavy at the bottom, lighter, and then lightest at the top, this one does indicate sort of that same idea, where there's a very light version, a medium version, and a heavier version of the same. And so the further away you are from the actual glass, the more you can see the solid nature of the pattern. And then as you get closer, or if you're in the building, you would notice it as more of a just a translucent panel. And then here's another example, a couple of examples. I think the version on the right is another way for you to understand the differences in frit pattern and how it goes from heavy to light. And then lastly, I think this image on the interior is a great one at the Johns Hopkins Hospital, because it shows how the light coming through the fritted pattern really plays with the shadows on the floor and on the adjacent surfaces. So you can imagine that in the hallway along the route between pods of academic classrooms, that you'd really get a nice play of light and shadow, and they would be in those the pattern of those leaves. So I think that's all I have for imagery. I'm happy to go back and forth to any that you found more helpful, or to have a discussion about it. So let me know what you think.
Luke, I think you had some ideas about where you wanted the fritted glass, or your concerns were that maybe there's better in some locations than others, but I'm just trying to remember what was talked about a week or so ago.
Yeah, I appreciate the update and some of the images and locations of where it is. I trust the architects in terms of not making it, obscuring lines of sight, and making that visibility. Keeping safety in mind is my number one with this. So I really I appreciate the update. To me, it doesn't look like it would be a safety impact, but I think it's a more aesthetic conversation at this point than it is a safety one, just based off that presentation.
Right, which is exactly why it's an alternate, because it was a purely aesthetic feature of the building, and so best to put it aside as an alternate so that we can have this discussion and spend the money wisely. And only if you had it. We wouldn't be having this discussion if you came in on budget or above budget, obviously.
Hi, this is Diane. I think this has been an interesting feature that's going through all these design review meetings that we had from kind of start to finish through schematic and design development. The fritted glass, I think, was a way to perhaps soften kind of the modern building or offset it and bring a bit of playfulness. It seems like something that the architect always brought to the project as a real plus. And it seems like it's being done in a pretty sophisticated way, that it will be a bit timeless. And I think that would be my one concern, is to continue to monitor that it's a sort of a timeless design and simple and elegant. And I think especially in in these three locations, it really will add a layer of detail and playfulness. It's a school after all, and we're very cautious about not loading the school with lots of overwhelming imagery, and to really keep things very simple and let the children and the school bring the life to it. But at the same time, I think a level of playfulness is really due. And since we found that there is room in the budget for it, I think it's a real positive addition. And all that being said, I'd love to continue to be involved. Maybe we have another design review meeting at some point to help guide the architects and work with them on the final design of the fritted glass, assuming we go with it.
Sure, Diane, of course, you'd be welcome to comment on the design as we move forward, for sure. And we'll be working, like I said, hand in hand with the glazing manufacturer, so that we're sure that it's also not beyond what they've estimated for this.
I think last time we talked about whether the Architectural Review Board would need to give their blessing to this fritted glass concept. And I think, Amy, you had some comments that with regard to certain parts of that wasn't part of the ARB's purview.
Well, to the extent that the inside facing courtyard was not really a part of their review, that's true. I do believe that the main entrance certainly was a part of our conversation and presentation to the ARB.
I'm sorry that Sean is not with us today, because this is the second time we've talked about this. I'd like to make sure that.
Again, I think as we talked about last week, and maybe we just need to go back to the meeting minutes and confirm that, but maybe Amy's quite certain of it, but I believe the fritted glass was approved and part of the design as it went through the Architectural Review Board, if I'm not mistaken, in the front entrance enclosure.
I believe you're right, and I forgot to check that, Diane, but I can go back right now and open the ARB presentation and double check that before you vote, if that's a help. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and look through my presentations for a moment.
So I would just, this isn't my expertise area at all, but I can imagine that if it looks great and you get it just right, it'll be great. If you don't, it'll be a distraction forever. So having said that, though, honestly, I just don't have the experience of those particular windows and glass and so on and so forth. So I just don't want to be too busy, but I trust that people can find the sweet spot with that.
Going back to what
I would completely echo with everything that Diane said so well. I think that absolutely it's really important that we get it right. And we've worked really hard to keep the building beautiful and simple and not a distraction. So that's paramount. But I do also think that done well, which I have every confidence it will be, I think the layer of whimsy and the way that it will change throughout the day and the lighting is really something that could be very fun and also probably pretty calming for students as well. So I think that this would add, I think this would add a really, really sophisticated level to the building.
I'd like to comment on it is too bad that Sean isn't here, but the Architectural Review Board wants timelessness, and it kind of matched the rest of the schools in town. And I personally don't think that this does this. Secondly, I'm a little concerned because I've now heard it twice today that people are referring to us being under budget, so therefore there's room for this stuff. I mean, our job as a building committee is to make sure we develop and build a school that's meets all the specifications in a high quality manner. It doesn't mean that just because the money's available, the taxpayers' money is available, that we have to necessarily spend it. And it's the second time today that that's been stated.
Hey, it's Randy here. I'll just offer I share the concern that Dr. Adley expressed about the irreversibility of it. That's all. That's just, I'm concerned about it being something that 2 years from now we won't like.
I'd be interested to hear if Mike Lynch has an experience with fritted glass, and since you've worked with so many different school buildings and your experiences.
I never have. I've never worked with any fritted glass at all like this. I don't have any. I don't have anything to offer as far as its, you know, e-value or anything like that. I have no idea. Sorry.
I have another comment, and this relates just to the question you just asked, Diane. In the middle school, we did all of the fun, whimsy things in the interior, because that's where the kids are, and that's where they're going to see it. They're not going to be outside other than for on the playground and stuff. So that's where we did all this type of things, and so, because it relates to the kids more than anybody else.
I would also argue that the kids walking into the building have a first impression, and that's pretty powerful to how they feel coming to school. And then if they feel that school is a fun place designed for them, that's important.
Yeah, and I think also maybe architecturally you could argue it's both an exterior image, but it's also, as Amy's mentioned a number of times, there's a lot of changing of light and playfulness and the way the shadows fall. And there's an experience going through all these hallways, moving between classes, that this will change a bit.
Right. I think in particular facing the courtyard, that's really a space that the students will experience both from interior and exterior on a regular basis.
I'm going to suggest, and people can say yes or no, that I know we have a little bit of time on this decision. We don't have much. We have to get it done somewhere, I think, in mid-January at the latest in terms of our scheduling on this. I think isn't that what you said, David, something about that in terms of the Lockheed they need a long advance time.
This is a lead time issue, I would say, for George and Brian, I think I saw you on the call. As far as a submittal and procurement standpoint, when we're going to have to have this, because obviously some of these glazing products will be needed for this building. But do we have any schedule yet from Lockheed as far as their submission date on glazing submittals and samples?
I do not have a date, but I do know I've been talking to Lockheed about they're looking to get an answer on this alternate. I did believe Eric told me that they are going to start submitting some of the frames and the aluminum, but I think for them to finalize the buyout of the glazing, they would need this decision. I would say it'd have to be pretty soon. I would think.
And I would say that on some of our other projects, we have seen a little bit of volatility with glazing materials as a result of COVID-19. So if we're getting somewhat close, I would prefer to err on the side of caution because we do know it's one of those materials that has been subject to getting held up in this past in 2020.
Okay. Well, what would be, rather than me making the recommendation, is there a recommendation out there or a motion to make on this particular alternate?
Kip, I'm sorry, I'm driving. What's the dollar amount on this again? I just don't have it in front of me.
The dollar amount right now is listed at $72,000.
$76,027, $76027.
I gather that would include a number of the windows as shown at the bottom of the picture in terms of interior courtyard windows.
That's for all of the design inclusive of both areas in the courtyard facing the Learning Commons. One of those walls is not depicted here, as well as the ELP and the main entrance.
Right. So all three areas. Okay.
So Amy, is it the blue around the main entrance and then something around the ELP entrance and then strictly in the courtyard?
Yes, that's correct, Duke.
Okay.
It's not on any of the classroom windows, nor is it at any of the areas like the library or the gym or anything like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, isn't, Amy, I'm looking at the courtyard south elevation. Aren't those classrooms that those glass coverings are over?
No, this is along the corridor kept facing the Learning Commons, facing the furthest pod, which is the 5th grade at the lower level and 2nd grade at the upper level.
Hmm. So it's just corridors, huh? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Well, if someone would like to make a motion on this, one way or another, we ought to make a decision then.
I move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, this is Diane. I'll second that.
Okay. I may have to do a hand count or a count on this one. All those in favor indicate by saying aye or raise your hand if I can see you.
Aye.
Aye.
I see Randy, I see Dan, I see Diane, I see Katie. And dude, Randy, you're not showing on the screen. You're not showing on the screen.
I'm good with it. Aye.
Okay. And those who oppose? Right, I see Rusty. Randy, where do you stand?
Nay.
Nay, okay. All right, well, I believe the ayes have it so that the motion is carried to approve the fritted glass, which is number B5, I believe it is.
It's a B2.
No, B2, excuse me.
B2.
B2, excuse me. B5 was our famous lightning protection. Okay. With regard, there's two more outstandings that we have, which is the, one is that inspection of that uplift pipe, which has to be looked at first by the doing a TV camera through it. So we can't really, that's sort of pending. The other one is the off-site soil storage. Rusty, have we been able to succeed on that one or no?
We're getting there is the answer. I talked at length on Friday to Mark Rolfe, who is Deputy Commissioner, and he is in favor of this and is trying to line up all the troops that are involved to make this happen. I also talked to Mike Sherpak. Mike is the Secretary and Director of the group that has to approve the Merritt Parkway Advisory Committee, which is made up of the DOT people, the Merritt Parkway Conservancy people, and some architects. So I am trying to push him to actually hold a meeting, a Zoom meeting this week, so we could get formal approval of it. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but he's working on it. And I also have reached out to Steve Moran, who is the manager of the maintenance division of the DOT in District 3, which is where we fall, who typically have approval process of this. He has now been brought around, shall we say, and is on our team. And I might add that Costa actually reached out to me this morning and said if we're having any little hesitancy or anybody dragging their feet, then give him a call and he will push from his end. So the answer is, I think it's looking very good for us to get that. The key now is just to get it done on a timely basis so we can start moving soil off site. I had a question for George. Is that because we're not moving all of the 20,000 cubic yards over to this site, this will only be 7, 8, 9,000. Is it possible, can you ask Sean's Lawn, is it possible to start working on the material that's going to be taken off site and done away with that we're not going to be reusing, so that if we need it, we may have a few extra days, etc., to get this formal approval.
Okay, yeah, I can talk to them about that.
Yeah, even the old septic field or whatever they're gonna, there's a whole bunch of that material, more than half of it, that we're not gonna be using. So that would be helpful if we can get that.
Say, Rusty, who is, Mark Rolfe is a deputy commissioner of what, DOT?
There are 2 deputy commissioners. So the commissioner was spoken to and he's passed it down to his deputy commissioner, who is in the commissioner's office. So
It's a DOT.
The DOT, yeah. So and
Yeah,
he
that's
was,
what it's trying.
yeah, he was very positive about it. He was very helpful, actually.
I love running the bureaucracy hurdle. It's a game, right?
Well, we've been almost all the way through everything.
And thank goodness we don't have to ask our local politicians.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. No comment.
No, yeah, no comment either. Is there, so that one we hopefully will get done. The good news is it would only cost us $160,000 if we don't get it, Rusty. I don't mean to say only, but you know, it's not like we were worried about this being close to $500,000 upcharge originally. So, all right. Is there anything else that people want to bring up about this project today? Is there any public comment? Well, before we all adjourn, I'm going to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope that everyone stays safe throughout the holiday season.
Thank you, Kip.
You too.
With that, I will
Happy New
ask
Year.
for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Duke
Second.
moves, and wait, Rusty moves and Duke seconds. All in favor,
Merry
please
Christmas.
say aye.
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 Sure, there's no opposed. Thank you all very much. Have a great
Luke,
holiday.
Luke,
I'm sorry.
are you going to be at the school at all tomorrow? Or no, are you home? You're staying home? You're
Happy New
not
Year,
there.
everybody.
Yeah, I'm planning to be home with you. if you need me for something, Dave, just send me an email. Give me a call.
No, I was gonna be out. I was gonna be down there, but I just, like I said, there's no reason. I wasn't sure if I was gonna see you or not while I was down there. So okay.
No, but send me a text if you want to catch you up or I can do anything. I'm here. I'm a short drive away.
Yeah, no worries at all. So all right, Merry Christmas, everyone. New Year. Thank you.
David, make sure you
Bye-bye,
send that
Merry
link
Christmas.
down to my friend Jim Cameron.
I will. And just Rusty, as far as the did Rusty drop? I think he did, right?
I did. Yeah.
All right. So Kip, just so you know, in our GMP that we're putting together, what we're going to do is we're going to